Okay, good. Well, my name is Rick Cloyd. Really glad to have you here this afternoon, this evening. We collaborate with the EDC, with Biz Labs, with the Distillery Labs, with Bradley Small Business Development Center. There's a whole ecology of people in the community that are here to help you. We're part of that, and we try and make sure that we sort of cross-reference people. So I'm really happy we can do this in collaboration with some other folks as well. So that being said, you know who you are. This is informal and interactive, and I'm going to have some. This is a workshop, so you're going to do some work. You can get it for free. And we had set up this for a 101 and a 102, and that was sort of my brief. You know what that is. If you'll hang with me, I think we can do this all in a little less than 2 hours, if that's okay. And I think the second part is really where a lot of you want to get to. So I'm going to try and get through that. I'm not going to rush, but I want to, if you'll hang with me on this, I think we can do it one night instead of having to do it two. Because we had a few people sign up for the second night, knowing that it's a big ask to get 2 nights in a row. So we okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. Just a little bit of background with me, just so you know who I am. My degree is in journalism. I spent some time in advertising. I was at Keystone for 25 years. I left there in 2001. I was vice president of sales and marketing. During that time, I went to the Illinois Executive MBA program, a life-changing experience. If you ever have a chance, do it. I went back to Caterpillar, and I spent 14 years in product support marketing, electric power, global brand management, which is a lot of what you're going to see tonight. This is not CAT, but that's where I got a lot of this content. I was also in the strategic investments, mergers and acquisitions group, and the last 2 years of my career, I was doing internal consulting with the executive office, a 4-person group that served the president and group presidents. I was an investor in a local control valve startup, and I did market research for them, and that was very expensive lessons in how to be an investor. And I've been a SCORE mentor for a little over 7 years, I think. So that's who I am and where I'm coming.
How much does the marketing assessment usually cost?
Depends.
Where does it start?
That was my investment. That it wasn't the market research. We didn't spend a lot of money on market research, but I was both an investor and a lender to that organization. And let's just say it didn't make it. Okay, so when I talked to Andrew about this the first time, we talked about this concept of the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. And it's a wonderful romantic story. I'm not Kevin Costner, obviously, but the idea here is that there's a sense among people that are starting businesses that all they have to do is start it, and the business will come to them. And my point here is, or maybe they won't. And why won't they? Or what do you do to make sure they do come? So that's where we're going to start. And I think I've heard most of these in my 7 years in SCORE, and you've probably heard of Mandy and Maryland. Millions of people need this product. All I need is 1% of the market. I'll be successful. You can read the rest of them. I don't have any competition. Oh, yeah, right. I rented the space because it was so cheap. I've had one of those. I know what I'm doing, so I don't need to write a business plan. I've had that. And I'm too busy getting started. I don't have the time to do a financial forecast. I've had that one almost verbatim. So these are all sort of red flags, and we get them. How many times have you heard these stories?
Every client, the last 2.
Yeah, the last 2 particularly, those are the difficult ones. So market assessment is important, and this is pretty much, I'm not going to read these slides for crying out loud, you can read them. But the point here is that you're trying to identify wants, needs, and preferences. And it's gaining an understanding, quantifying the market eventually, and then you don't want to put your heart on time and money and sweat equity into something that you just don't feel is going to get there. So what we're trying to do here, and a lot of I talk to my clients about, is I'm sort of your risk manager. I'm not going to drive your business, but what I want to do is keep an eye out for some of the risks that you may face. And in our conversations every month or a couple of weeks, I'm going to bring some risks to your attention. I had one of those this afternoon, talking about something in terms of buybacks and returns. We're a company that sells to retail, and the risks involved in doing that. And frankly, all of this comes down to, if you're going to go ask for money or finance it, you need to have a financial forecast, and there has to be some foundation. It can't be just picking numbers out of the air. The Better Business Bureau has some comments about what they see as the reasons for failure. And these obviously don't add up to 100 because there's more than that. There's multiple sources. But if you look at these, other than running out of cash, all of these are marketing issues. And I think the Better Business Bureau probably has a pretty good handle on this. I've looked some other things up. I've done some research about startup failures. There's a great deal of literature on that, and you have to believe somebody. And I'm not sure there's anybody that's got it pinned down by industry or type of business or location. But the point here is that sort of universally, if you don't understand your market and who you're selling to and why, you're not going to do very well. So this is a quote from a person, Judy Mahan. I've never met her, but I thought it was a really interesting one. And that is, what's the common factor that causes small businesses to fail? It's lack of strategic sales and marketing plan and not understanding your customer segments, which is where we're going with this. And what you would call this is sort of market segmentation 101, as well as market assessment. So how do you reduce the risk of starting a business? You do conduct an assessment. And this is a phrase I've used for years, that is privileged insight. At some point when you're doing this work, you will know and learn things that nobody else knows. Nobody else on the planet will know that. And that is a competitive advantage. And it also gives you some knowledge and wisdom about what you're trying to do that nobody else has. Now, you can get that just by doing some hard work. You can do it by spending money. You can find experts, or you can find people to help you with that. But once you get that, it's sort of the secret sauce. What is it that makes this thing work that other people haven't figured out? And then finally, this is what we're talking about tonight, is define your target segment, positioning, and value proposition. And this is something I think you need to realize too, that market opportunity is necessary, but not sufficient for business success. And that's pretty much the preamble. So the 4 steps to defining your business in this discussion, and there could be others, but this is segmentation, targeting, positioning, and value proposition. This was originally designed to go first night, second night. I think we can get through all of these tonight if you'll sort of bear with me. We're going to define each of these and what goes into it. But before we do that, would you please pass these along? Because I need one of those for myself just as a reference. Thank you. This is where you can actually do, this is a workshop. This is sort of how to start on your business plan. Because if you do this, and this is a note, this is for note taking, and this is for thinking. If you want to take a couple of minutes and sort of go through it eventually, we can sort of walk through it. And you're going to see content on this presentation that directly aligns with what you've got on the page. So it's sort of a 1-for-1. It's going to be very, very similar to what you're seeing right in front of you. Okay. So first thing is, what is your business? And this go right off the top. What do you provide? What do you sell? So if you start writing some things down here, and just be brief about it, but what do you really sell? What are you selling? That's the easiest question on the page. Why do you believe there's a market for your product or service? Again, you can make a note, or you can say, you know, I've done this before, or I'm really good at it, or I'm certified, or I have a professional license, or I've made an investment. We're going to talk about what you're really selling in a little bit here. And then what distinguishes your product or service from competitors? Things such as features, unique benefits, lower price, faster service, brand image, convenience, all sorts of things can be ways to differentiate your business or service. But it's really, really important that you have something that is different. We talk about a unique selling proposition or a competitive advantage. Those are all sort of wrapped up in that concept. And at the end of the day, you turn these differentiators into a succinct promise to your customers. And then this is getting to the point of, all right, I'm ready to start my business. I'm going to go ask a banker or a lender for some money. Can you provide evidence to validate your belief that there's a market and that you're able to capture a reasonable percentage of that market to create a sustainable business. At the end of the day, you've got to be able to do that. If you're not even borrowing money, you still have to do that for yourself. So as you move on down the page, who are your target customers? Write that one down. I'll give you some time to think about that.
Can I ask you?
Sure, please.
I wanted to type down what was in that yellow box. Can you tell?
Sure, I think we can go back here.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, provide evidence to validate your belief.
I'm gonna go back over this later.
Okay, well, we can go back over it if you want later on too. Well, if you got a question or want to have a discussion or something like that. Where are your target customers located? This could be, I've had discussion with one person that was focused on flea markets. That was their target. That's where they were going with this. It was a product that was rather unusual, and there's sort of an important number here, the 20-minute drive. That's a real retail break point. And I think you were talking about 45 minutes to get to a golf course. I think that's one of those things. It's not the same for every business, but typically in retail, these are the sort of things that you'll look at. Okay, I'm just going to ask, where are your target customers located?
We create an app. We're creating an app that for small businesses to sell their products. And so I put that our customers, our target audience is everywhere. Anybody that has a small business would be who we're trying to attract.
So it's like the internet or globally. Okay,
Yeah.
so where are your target customers?
I actually don't have an idea yet.
Okay,
So I didn't write anything down. I'm just
All right.
gathering information. I could go off on one of my current businesses.
sure. Where are they located?
So one of them, I'm a graphic designer, and they are usually within a couple hours of me, but I do mostly online communication with them. And they're usually like really small businesses that are just really need the help, but can't afford to pay a big design firm. So
Yeah.
they're anywhere really, but pretty close
Okay.
usually.
Okay, do you have an idea?
Galesburg and Knox County, pretty much. Men, women, children, so anybody in that area.
Okay. You have an idea there?
Yeah, mine would be in the area.
Okay, which is how big an area? What?
I could go ahead and go within 30 miles.
Okay, Barbara?
I have a couple of different market avenues. One for retail would be within generally the Peoria area.
Okay,
The grocery stores, but then if I do private label, that could be companies out in Colorado because that's where I have my ties and direct to consumers,
okay,
driving traffic.
sir,
Online.
online, okay. And that's becoming, geographic boundaries are becoming very, very difficult to define in some of these things. And,
I really have two businesses within my business, so the golf area is constrained probably by the drive. So our event venue, people, I think the market of the event venue is different market from the golf ring. So
Yep.
I was two.
you have two different target audiences, really. Okay, all right. Who are your competitors? Nobody has a business that doesn't have competitors. I mean, it's just, I guarantee it. So who are your competitors? Do they come to mind? Do you know who they are? Yes, sir.
So if I don't have competitors, does it mean that I don't have a market?
No, it's that you just haven't looked hard enough,
Okay.
because you will have a competitor doing something. Maybe it's an adjacent space, but I think maybe, do you have a business that you could think of that would not have competitors? What would that be?
Well, great question. I I've tried to launch a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
But then I don't have customers, also don't have competitors.
Well, that's the absence of customers means you don't have competitors, as opposed to absence of competitors doesn't mean you have customers.
Fair point.
Okay, did I get that right? Okay. Now, who are your competitors? How many are within your trading area? And your trading area is this right here. If you're on the internet, everywhere. But say you got a fast food restaurant, what's your travel area in a fast food restaurant? Typically about 2 miles. That's why there's so many Subways and McDonald's. You know, the Subway has more stores than McDonald's.
Oh.
Yeah, people don't realize it. They actually have more. But the point there is McDonald's will basically put their stores in a place where they understand they're going to cannibalize one of their other stores. But that means they're also going to make it very tough for anybody else to enter in that market in the fast food segment. So your strategic decision about how far you can go and how far your industry allows you to go. If you're in some other businesses, it may mean 6 hours, doesn't matter. But some of these things are really important, particularly if you're in retail. So say, who are your competitors? How many are within your trading area? Are there clusters of competitors? Why is that important? There's two, I didn't put them in here, but there's two theories about this. And one of them is, and it's a long time ago, but that is competitors cluster because it's to their advantage to be near their other competitors. The best place to put a jewelry store is right next to a jewelry store, the old story. There may be benefits of locating close to competitors. It doesn't necessarily mean you should be far away from them. And that's where you have to understand your industry and what is the customer willing to do. If you're in the fast food business, you may be better off being right next to another fast food because there's spillover benefits. Yes, sir.
So like, auto dealerships and malls and.
Yep.
You know, like the strip mall in East Peoria with
Yep.
all the food and retail. Is that helpful? I mean, could you also argue that?
Yeah.
You know, there are also issues with co-locating next to competitors.
Well, as long as you're not in collusion with them. But well, out on Pioneer Parkway in Peoria, if it's solid car dealerships for about a mile. And that used to be Main Street in downtown Peoria, where they were all there. I'm showing my age, but that was where the cars were, is on Main Street. Well, they're now on Pioneer Parkway. So there's benefits because if you don't see what you like there, you go right next door. You don't have to drive 50 miles to get to another one.
East Peoria has that with Costco,
Yeah,
Walmart,
Yep.
Aldi's, and Kroger.
all right there, all right there. And those people aren't stupid. I mean, they understand real estate. You know, McDonald's is really a real estate company because they understand how to deal with real estate. They also sell hamburgers, but they're in the real estate business as much as anything, and they understand that. If you've ever seen one of the new Walmart supercenters, you know, they built a lot of those right across the street from where their old store was. The number one lesser of old Walmarts was, question, who is it? Who do you think it would be? Tractor Supply. And their real estate people figured if Walmart knows where the best spot is, and I have a product mix is not quite what Walmart sells, I'm going to get their traffic, plus they understand what other retailer traffic is there. So they're not a competitor, but it's a cluster of people in retail right there.
Hey, Rick,
Yeah.
I would make a comment on competitors too. When you say there's no competitors, it's not always obvious who your competitor is. They don't have to have the same product as you do to be a competitor. So take the golf course example. You own a golf course, okay. So a competitor of yours is Netflix or any other entertainment.
Yeah.
I have all these other entertainment options. So it's not just golf courses that are your competitors.
You just
Well, yeah, you're,
Competing for my time. It takes a lot of time.
yeah, and then
I have to commit a whole day if I want to go golf.
and what business are you in? I had a client that was in the florist business, and we had a discussion about this, and I said, what are you really selling? Well, it's not flowers. It's emotional satisfaction.
Mhm.
Flowers die, but the sentiment lives on. So if you look at that and say, okay, who am I competing against for emotional satisfaction? Is it Hallmark cards? Is it people that make chocolates? Is it guys that give you a nice bottle of wine? All of those things could be considered in that same category, but it's not the same product. Okay, now, this is not your brain on drugs. But this is starting to get into segmentation. The purpose of this very crude illustration, which I did, and that is to talk about groups of potential customers that have the most in common with each other, such as these 4 types of segmentation: demographics, geographics, behavior, and psychographics. So there's a couple others, but those are the big ones. And the idea is, if this is the universe of everyone in an area or a market, there's clusters of them that have much in common with each other, even though they're next to each other, and they have as much in common with each other and as much different from each other as the other segment. So this would say, okay, this is a market where there's 3 segments, just as a graphic to get that concept across. And this is one that's really important, and this maybe take a little bit of thought. The target that we're talking about here, when we get into it, is not the market. You will attract customers from other segments, but they will not be your primary focus. And we'll get into that a little bit further. Okay, so let's go back to this. Who are your competitors? How many are within your trading area? Can you define that? Can you write that down? And how do you figure that out? And we're going to talk about some ways to do that.
How do you figure that out? Is exactly right.
Yep.
More than you can possibly count.
Yes. There's a lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Can my area be too big?
Sure. But if you're in a certain industry where distance and time are no real barrier, then you're competing with graphic designers competing with fiber and with people all over the place.
Everybody's
Some-
brother's cousin.
Everybody that's
shop,
got a Photoshop or
marketing
Canva.
company. Yeah,
They're-
Canva.
anybody with a digital camera is not a professional photographer.
Yeah.
So you're probably gonna get to this, but if I work in a large corporation, they spend a lot of money on buying databases or buying access to databases
Right.
that contain a lot of this information. I can't afford that. I mean, I've bought data to some extent, but I'm not gonna spend much of my budget on that. Like other than the US Census, I feel like I just did it for fun. So
SPDC has,
they,
so get with the SPDC, they ask for data.
and they turned me away.
Oh.
They don't have golf course data. So I had to go to the National Golf Course Association and buy their data.
Yeah. Well, there may be other ways to get that. And this is not a pitch for an expensive market research project. Far from it.
Facebook has all that stuff. Facebook?
There's plenty of
You don't
places.
Buy the data, you just buy the ads that already targeted the people you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's just a tool to get at what it's talking about.
There are plenty of sources. I've done market research on things.
Facebook.
I did market research on the market, the potential market for gas control valves in Chile, and never left my living room. You'd be amazed at the amount of information you can get. I got really, really good at search terms for certain specific topics. And once I got to that, I got a tremendous amount of information. And I did a report, which is an approximation of that. It may have been off by 50%, but it was not off by 200%. It was enough to be actionable. And that's really what you're looking for. You need to have enough information to be actionable. Yes, ma'am, I saw you in the back there.
I'll just add a quick plug, another resource that is free, your local library. No one has a library and they cannot wait to build and research things. So utilize your local librarian.
We've got a couple of pages, and if you got one of our binders, and there's some more, as you're on your way leaving, we've got a binder with some more SCORE information and one of the slides in here that talks specifically about information sources for you. So that will, I hope, help you get going on that. Okay, so I mentioned 4 ways to approach segmentation: demographic, geographic, behavioral, psychographic. I'm not going to read them to you. Can you read them from back in the back there? Would you like me to read them?
Oh,
Pretty pretty evident. This is the most common one right here. This is where you get the most information typically from time to time. This is, again, this might be very important for your golf course work. Right there. Marilyn, you had a, okay. Behavioral, this gets into a number of things. This is a little bit more difficult to do. And here's finally psychographic. How do they express themselves? Personality, self-image, beliefs, value, lifestyles, so on and so forth. There's a tremendous amount of information on this. There's a book called The Clustering of America, and it was done based on developing a census tract level analysis of every census tract in the United States in terms of all of these factors. And Claritas Company is the one that did that, and you can buy that service, but it's not cheap. But you can get some information about these things without her having to go spend any real money on it. Yeah. Now, one of the things, talking about behavioral, when I was with my former employer, we did some research in Brazil, in Portuguese. We had a firm that did that, and we were looking for small generator sets, less than a kilowatt, or less than 1,000 kilowatts. I'm sorry. The number one reason the buyer wanted to buy a certain brand was not about how it performed or how much it cost. It was they did not want to be embarrassed in front of their boss by buying the wrong thing. All the spec sheets in the world don't solve that problem. What you're getting is, you're talking about self-image. This was consumer type research done for an industrial product, but we really managed to get down to the issue of self-image. What is it this person feels like they have to do to protect their relationship with their boss and to feel like they've done a good job? You can't get that at this level or this level or this level. We were fortunate to be able to uncover this type of information because of the way the interviews were done. And it was entirely different than the upper end of the product range, much more expensive equipment. This is sort of like buying a refrigerator or a small car. You're not buying a 747. But this is the sort of thing that came out when we started doing that type of research. And it informed entirely the segmentation model that we developed based on this. Okay.
I think that's where we can find golfers and stuff too, though. I think Facebook and Google and stuff, they have those psychographics. You can target for golfers or let's say affiliated sports. There are probably a really good cluster.
Yeah.
Who do this, also golf.
Comcast has
Secret knowledge.
Comcast runs ads from time to time. They talk about their target segmentation. They said they have 300 addressable market segments that they can do with their cable television. Yeah.
They'll sell you their subscribers.
So this is getting a little further into the thing here. This is talking about how do you do some segmentation? You know, you get this information and you start thinking about it and say, okay, how do I sort this all out? Well, this is a two-dimensional retail segmentation model, and typically the segmentation has to be two dimensions that are not highly correlated, because if they're very much alike, they don't give you an X and a Y axis. You can do this with data, or you can do this. I put this together. I mean, I just put it together. The two dimensions here are the drive time to the store, under 20 minutes, up to 60 minutes, and price sensitivity, high or low. And one of the things you find is when you're doing market segmentation, and one of these things is put a name to it. Now, you do that and it makes it memorable. And when you're dealing in a large organization, you're going to talk about a market segment. And instead of saying the ones that do this and this and this, no, it's the explorers. I want to show you another couple of examples of how that's done. Now, think about this. This is a little quiz. Think about this in terms of retail grocery stores. Who would you put in each four of those quadrants?
Aldi's for bargain hunters? Is that what you're asking?
I don't know. Just think about it.
Oh.
Give me some ideas. Who's going to be here? Now, this is just groceries. Just groceries.
Definitely
Got
Aldi's.
Okay. How about down here?
That's Aldi.
That's Aldi there.
Okay. Who's here?
That's Kroger. Yeah. It's gotta be Kroger too.
Who's here?
Walmart.
Ivy.
Oh, you know.
Hy-Vee has a price image. They're not.
Oh,
that
that's
cheap.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Higher than that.
Who's here?
Big box.
Oh,
See
okay,
how
the
good you
light.
guys are?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what the Hy-Vee probably.
You got it.
on there.
You got it.
Oh,
With no data. Zero data, you got it. That's interesting, because I just put this together today and I thought, oh, yes.
mm,
You got that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. You missed Sam's and Costco.
cause nobody goes there. No, I'm just joking.
And if you go to Whole Foods, used to be known as Whole Paycheck. And Trader Joe's, the nearest Trader Joe's is in St. Charles, Illinois.
Mm.
But when we're up in the Chicago area, we always stop there. We won't drive up there just for that, but if we're there, we'll go there. Whole Foods, not so much. In fact, I don't think I've been to Whole Foods in years. But these are the ones that you look at sort of run of the mill. And think about this. If you look at the strategy and segmentation of this, one of the reasons that Kroger runs so many specials during the week is that their research has shown that their number one competitor on the weekends is Walmart, but not during the week. So they've understood the granularity of their shopper data to know that they've got to get them in on Monday through Friday because they're heading for Walmart or Aldi on the weekend. So does this make sense? I mean, we had a piece of work we did in Europe, and we could get to the point where we could put an individual customer's name in. It was a 6-segment model, and the one where they were very, very anxious about price, and they would not pay for any services if they demanded it. And the segment, we called it buyers from hell. And everybody know who they were talking about. Now, I wouldn't recommend that. But the point was, it resonated with the people that were doing the work. And you put a name in each one of those segments. Okay, so think about the golf industry. You probably got the same thing going on. Graphic design, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, show you another example here. This is data from a presentation called Consumer Segmentation Models for Outdoor Active Brands. I have borrowed the data. I made the graphic myself, but this is the outdoor recreation consumer. There's 161 million of them in the United States. 1/3 of the spending is by 20% of those people. And this is proportion based on the total dollars spent within the market. These are the frequent and engaged that are 80% of the spending, and these are the less involved, that's total 20% of the spend. So think about this in terms of Nike or Adidas or the golf people, sell golf equipment, Titleist, anybody. These are the things, and I don't think this was normally focused on golf as it was other types of outdoor recreation. So if you're putting this together and you've done this research and you say, wow, that's where I ought to be. Well, you know what? Everybody else in your market's going to say, wow, that's where I ought to be. So what's going to happen? Price competition galore over here. So not just quantifying the size or evaluating the size of the market, is there an underserved segment overlooked by competitors? Now there's a new sporting goods place in Peoria. It's called Academy Sports. They're not Dick's Sporting Goods. If this is Dick's Sporting Goods, where is Academy Sports going? Because I think their whole presentation is not quite the same as Dick's Sporting Goods. And that whole superstore in the big box store in the sporting goods category, the only one left is Dick's, as far as I know. There's nobody else.
Well, I thought Academy was comparable to Dick's, but I'm not, because when we shopped in Arkansas, or I guess never mind.
No,
I don't go to the back of any of these stores. My son played football, so I've only been in the front section of these stores.
Yeah, that's okay.
Here's a Dunham's.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Dunham's, yeah.
yeah.
They're much smaller and
They've got those prices though.
Yeah, and they've got some interesting stuff.
Yeah,
What I found is they do really good closeouts on fishing tackle.
yeah, or anything really.
So I'll go over there, I'll wander through there every so often to see what they've got.
And every
So-
time you buy something, you get a coupon when you check out. So that if you want to get something better, save the coupon, you go in and you buy a kayak for 20% off
Oh,
or whatever
Yeah.
you're gonna get.
the point here is that I think Academy Sports is probably sort of trying to span this a little bit. They're trying to span this, and they may even be going down here. They may say, okay, look, I don't have the firepower from a marketing standpoint, media standpoint to go right after Dick's, but I can find a spot that they're not serving, and I can position myself so that I'm not going head to head with Dick's Sporting Goods. In fact, they're going to be pretty close together, aren't they? They're within
Yeah.
about half a
They're
mile of
really
each other.
close.
Why would they do that?
Because when the one doesn't have something, they're gonna go to the other.
There you go. Now, this, I say here, this is a disclaimer. This is the product of very sophisticated research. I don't know how much money they spent doing this, but it was a big piece of work they did. More than you and I want to spend on something like this. But the concept here is, what can you do to identify these things, at least in your own mind, as to where those sit, and then trying to find some confirming information or some data that's available free on the internet. Okay. And here's another one. And this is, by the way, this is free on the internet. This is a market segmentation model, multidimensional for wine. And what's really interesting is that they've identified the size, 84 million buyers, and there are 6 segments over there. Okay. The largest one is senior bargain hunters. Okay. What do you think the price point is for senior bargain hunters as opposed to these people up here?
$5 chuck.
Yeah,
This is $3 chuck.
Yeah.
This is Cape Bread Cellars Cabernet 1988
Yeah.
at $75 or $80 a bottle. So you can see how this is the consumption frequency, and this is effect disposable in the price, low to high. So look where these guys are. Frequent buyers and high prices. And this is a description of each of these demographics based on color code. This is on Mechographics and wine consumer customer segmentation. Gives you some idea. So this is demographic and behavioral and psychographic. This is disposable income. This is lifestyle, and this is geography. So they've combined about 6 different factors in this work. Again, this is not cheap to do market research. The point is, conceptually, this is how you can think about a market so that you identify who you're going after and who can you get into competition with down here. Maybe it's this one. You're not going to go into these guys. They're so entrenched and their customer loyalty is so high, you're not going to shake them loose. But down here, you might have a shot at them. Okay? So this is where you talk about target segments. And again, this is sort of going back to what we talked about a little earlier. And right here in your document, you can see where it says, who are your customers, who are your competitors, what's your trading area? And then you get to the point of who are your target segment customers. And that's important because you may have a segment that you want to serve, and you may attract others. But you need to focus your efforts on one segment, and others will come to you. Where's your target located? Internationally, if you're on the internet, any place that can either read your language or translate it on the computer. What are their wants, needs, and preferences? Why would they buy what you're selling? And then this one, I think, is really, you don't necessarily realize that, but what unspoken needs are you fulfilling? Do people really say, I'm buying wine because I just like to get drunk on the weekend?
No.
I'm a connoisseur, or I really like wine with dinner, something else. There are unspoken needs in almost every product and service. And until you start digging into it in some fashion and understanding what's really going on, you will miss the point. So in addition to doing the very obvious stuff, this is a really important, again, like a florist shop. What are you selling? You're selling really emotional contact and connection with a person. The flowers are the vehicle to accomplish that. Now, this is the point I was making. There are clues in the hundreds of market segmentation examples available on the internet. If you go on the internet and say market segmentation for golf courses and click on images on Google, you will probably come up with half a dozen different segmentation models. It's amazing. There are hundreds of them out there in just about every industry. They're free. You can crib them, you can copy them. This is probably a little on the edge of copyright, but the point here is that for your personal use, you can find this and it's available free. The key is to getting your search terms right so you don't end up with 500 different things you got to sort through. All right.
The hard part is deciding what to do with it.
Yeah.
In my experience, not every customer, every segment is good for every business.
Absolutely not.
That's the hard part, is deciding which ones do you want to chase.
Okay. So here's another example. Automobiles. This is good stuff. So how many of you been in a Ford dealership? Have you been ever in a Tesla dealership? Anybody? I walked into one in a mall and just sort of looked around and walked out. I didn't get a sales pitch or anything. A Jeep dealership. Anybody in a Jeep dealership? And I'm sure you've all been in a Rolls Royce dealership. How would you feel if you walked into Rolls? How would I feel if I walked into a Rolls Royce dealership? He'd say, "Are you looking for someplace else?"
Yeah. I feel out of
The
place.
restrooms are down the street at Harvey's.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
And the point there is, this whole presentation sort of sorts out the customers before they ever walk through the door. And you know what a Rolls Royce is and how, I don't know how much those cost now, but $300,000, something like that. Very expensive automobiles. These, think about this. Think about the explorers and the people that are into outdoor activities. These are the environmental and younger folks that want to do that. This is a muscle car, and that's the most best-selling car in the United States, the F-100, 150. I've never walked into one of those dealerships. I don't even know where to find one. Amber.
So, consumer goods, right, Gucci, fancy brands, Louis Vuitton, etc. They're not, as far as I read or heard on YouTube and all these other channels, they say that they're not selling to rich people. They're selling to people who aspire to be rich.
Mm-hmm.
And so then my question is that similar to Rolls Royce? Is that similar with Tesla and all these high-end cars?
I don't have access to their market research, but I'd say there's a lot of people that want to look rich rather than be rich. Why would you spend your money on this car unless it's for other reasons than something to get you around
Which is
town?
the psychographic piece that you were getting.
That's the point. What is the unspoken need that Rolls-Royce fills? Now, if you are a Hollywood star or celebrity, a Bentley is the deal. Bentley and Rolls-Royce are now two different companies. The Bentley is the deal, but you can buy a Bentley on 1% of your annual income if you're one of these people that's really well paid. But these will all get you around just as far and just as fast and probably more reliably than this one. Oh, the service will be cheaper. The financing one of these will be less expensive. The point is, what does the Tesla say when somebody buys one? Does anybody own a Tesla? Okay. Well, a Tesla says something about what you want in terms of your aspiration and your image, and also you feel like it's a good deal, or it gives you the type of transportation you really like. Same thing with Jeep. If you're really out into outdoors, you want something sporty, that's great. Ford, muscle cars and trucks. I think that's about the only sedans Ford's going to be selling anymore. It's all SUVs, pickups, and the Mustang. So what's different about each one of these value propositions? Well, the value proposition is not just the car. Look at what these stores look like. Jeep, sort of rustic. And it's right next to, by the way, that's a Chrysler dealership. Now, I think they're both owned by the same. I think Stellantis owns both of those brands, don't they?
Yeah.
Tesla, they've got actually showrooms in some high-end shopping malls. Ford dealerships, you've seen those are 4 or 5 around town. I don't know what, there's got to be one up in the Chicago area or maybe one in St. Louis, but I don't think there's anyone closer than that.
I've heard that, they sell Rolls Royces next to a 747 in air shows. Serious.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
They have a Rolls Royce booth
Yeah.
and an air show next to the 747s.
Oh, yeah. Well, think of who's buying 747s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the difference here is if you walk in to a Jeep dealership, they're not gonna know who you are. If you walk into a Rolls Royce dealership and you've ever been there before, they will know you by name. They'll know your wife's name, they'll know your birthday, they'll know where your kids are going to school, they know where you live. And you will have volunteered all that information because it's important for you to be recognized when you walk in the door of the Rolls Royce dealership. Okay? So the value proposition we're talking about here is, it's not just the product, it's the presentation, it's the cost, it's the service, it's the entire experience from when you first consider buying a product to the point where you've bought it and you get it serviced or you dispose of it. That's the entire value proposition. Okay? Now, I had fun putting this together. Can you read those? Come on up here and read those. I think you'll enjoy this. This never happens. People don't walk into your store with labels. But these people are, I had to find a lot of people who wore white t-shirts and ads, so I could put that on there. I made this up. This is not, but once a Jeep, good job, no savings. Once a BMW will finance. Once Tesla will pay cash. She's obviously wearing expensive trousers or something. Once a Dodge Charger will trade in an old Camaro. Once an F-150 has got a 470 credit score, not going to happen. An Uber driver wants an Audi EV, but he's got $100,000 in student debt, and she's an Instagram influencer. She's making $1.5 million a year, and she wants an electric bike.
Yes.
So people don't walk into your store with something written across their chest, and frankly, if any of these walked into your store, you would say, "Welcome, I'd like to talk to you. What can I do to help serve you?" You would never turn any of them away. But at the same time, you are going to know pretty well after you talk to them, if you're doing that type of selling, what they want, where they're coming from, and what their ability to buy the product is. And what you're trying to do with segmentation is be able to narrow down your focus in terms of your communication and your presentation so that you're not wasting your money. You can't sell Rolls Royces to 100,000 people in the United States. They're not going to be there, or at least in the Midwest. There may be 200, 300 people that are going to buy them. Okay. But Dodge Charger, sell those things all the time. Ford 150s, that's the most popular car in the United States. This guy can't afford one, and he looks like it. That's why I picked that guy. But the point here is you can use segmentation to help uncover wants, needs, and preferences, even if you aren't talking directly to that individual. That's the process of understanding them to the point where you start to get inside their head and say, okay, what is really driving their behavior? Now, if this young lady walked into a BMW dealership or a Lexus dealership, she could probably pay cash for that car. But that's not what she wants, at least in my ex. But if she walked into that dealership, the dealership ought to say, here's somebody that might be able to buy my car. I'm not going to say, hey, get out of here. You're not going to buy anything from me. That's the point. And let me show you another way to think about that. What are your marketing goals, and how does that point you toward a market segment? Whose needs can you best satisfy? Who will be the most profitable customers? And that's the other thing is, it's not just number of customers, it's how profitable are they? Can you reach and serve your target market effectively? Is the target segment large and profitable enough to support your business? Do you have the resources available to effectively reach and serve your target segment? That's the only slide I'm going to read tonight in its entirety. But these are really important questions that you need to think about. Okay. This, how are we doing on time here? Okay, it's 7:30. We're gonna do this tonight. So it's not about perfection, it's gaining insight, pursuing these concepts, sharpening your thinking, and just developing some insight reduces your risks. So with that in mind, I'm going to go to the next page. This is the one that I mentioned, and that is I think we have extras of this. Okay. Did I put those in here? Anyway, they are. They're in each one of those folders that you have, or if you don't have one of those, you want to pick one up, but this is the same set of information on that slide so that you can use that as a reference point. And I'm sure the people at Biz Labs or with the SBDC or others can help you with that. On the left are the organizations locally, and then there's a lot of things that you might find. One of the ones I've used is census.gov, and you can drill down through that. It takes a little bit of work, but you can identify the number of companies in an area. You can identify the size of the payroll, their sales. You can do average sales per employee. You can do average sales per geography. It takes some work to do that, but you can actually drill down through census.gov, and I've done it a number of times. Library of Congress research guides, there's things like that as well. Dun and Bradstreet Small Business Solutions, the Jump Trading Simulation Center, and if you're looking for money, there's also a group called the Central Illinois Angels, which is basically venture capital investors that are available to help people get a business started if you've got a good story. Okay, so yes, go ahead. Central Illinois Angels, they're I think they do, yeah. Yeah, just Google that, get it.
So you had mentioned Google as a resource for market research, but that's not here.
No, we didn't put that on there, but
It used to be AdWords,
AdWords on Google is the one. I didn't put that on. I just overlooked it. I'm sorry. There's so many of them. I wanted to get the local organizations and some others that you might not have thought about on this page. Okay. So are we good? Do you want to take a couple minutes and take a break, or you want to keep going for a minute? Why don't we take a 5-minute break and then let's go back and we'll cover section 2.